Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. Today I want to do another video on philosophy. I am now walking in nature in the mountains of Cyprus, the Troodos mountain range. The village to my left is the village of Katoplatres. And if you look like in the horizon, in the distance, is the waterfall where I was in my last video. So of course I traveled from this spot up there on foot, but the video was only a portion of that journey, okay? Anyhow, today I want to talk to you about the topic of, this is the working title, but please work with me, loss, entitlement, and presence. So I want to expound on those themes and to help us develop a mindset, a disposition of being tolerant to what is happening to us, of having a certain lightness to our being so that we do not suffer from obstacles that our mind is setting up, so that we don't meet those obstacles and don't feel powerless to circumvent them. Before I proceed to this topic, I need to make a very brief note here. I received an email which provided me the authority to share this information. I wish to thank Dmitry Matveyev, I will write the name in the description and on my website, for the generous donation that makes all this possible. It was a €500 donation with which I bought this smartphone, the Samsung Galaxy A53, the selfie stick, and the adapter for the charging cable. So thanks to Dimitri for making this possible, and let's proceed with the video. So we have loss, entitlement, and presence. Let's start with loss. There is, of course, loss in the sense of death. We know that all too well. But I want to discuss a more subtle kind of loss, the kind of loss where you are not really undone. You are still there, you are living through the loss, and you have to cope with it. You have to find ways to deal with the situation, ways to have a certain mental fortitude so that you don't break under the pressure. Let me then tell you a story. When I was the summer before I turned 17, so my birthday is in August, and the summer before, it was like June, we were having our final training sessions. I was a semi-professional football player, and there was a plan to go and do some trials which were a formality, and I would have signed my first professional contract. Alas, in one of those final training sessions, I sustained an injury which is not a serious injury in the sense that I have since recovered from it, but at the time it sidelined me for a few months. I could not compete, I could not run, I couldn't play football basically. And I did not have the money, my parents did not have the money, my team didn't have an insurance scheme or a doctor or whatever to deal with the injury. So basically I lost my physicality, I lost my competitiveness, I lost my ability to play football, but I also lost the what could have been. I lost the eventuality, the potential of signing a contract and then of being a football player and of pursuing that career and basically having a very different life than the life I ended up having. At the time, I was not a philosopher. I had never studied anything. I didn't care about school and books and stuff. I was just a teenager with a passion for football. I could play all day. I could run all day. It was all I wanted to do. But life had different plans. Let's put it this way. Plans that did not account for my desires, for my volition. Plans about me without my participation in them, in their making, in their formulation. But plans that still affected my life. Plans that still changed my life. So at the time, I didn't have the theoretical framework I have now. I didn't have the mental tools to analyze the situation. However, we often do the right thing. We often operate in accordance with the proper principle, even without knowing the theoretical framework within which we are operating. The theoretical framework that explains and elucidates our behavioral patterns. So, concretely, at the time, I was a bit sad about the loss of my ability to play football, and also the loss of the potential of being a professional and doing what I liked. But I didn't let that sadness, that grief sink in. I didn't let it drag me down. I didn't fall into a state of depression or desperation where I thought that basically my world had ended. I took it in a way that is relaxed, but without thinking about being relaxed. Okay, it was just my natural response. I was calm about it. I was like, okay, it happens. This is part of life. It is unfortunate. It is something I didn't want, but it happened. So I took it that way. I accepted my fate, basically. I accepted the fact that I had no control over the factors of that case. It was not a matter of my wish. It was not a matter of my volition. It was not up to my free will to decide those things, to exert influence over those factors. Things just happen. Things just happen, and you are but a player. You are but a spectator. You are witness to something that is greater than you. But you are not the architect. You are not the one in charge. So at the time I didn't know this, theoretically, but I still behaved that way. So I was calm about it. By being calm about it, I accepted the fact that in life there are eventualities and outcomes that we cannot predict. And that if we are in a state of tunnel vision, if we obsess about something and only want that, we don't open ourselves to those other possibilities, to those eventualities. We don't give ourselves the chance to move on and to partake in new experiences. Experiences whose outcome we don't yet know, whose reward we cannot yet anticipate. So at the time, when I was in that summer, before I even turned 17, if someone were to come and tell me that from being that teenager who only cared about football to becoming interested in intellectual matters and eventually philosophizing, I would have said that they are crazy. I would have said you are out of your mind. I, as the 16-year-old, I'm not that person. Do you expect a footballer, someone who is only good at kicking a ball, to philosophize? Are you mad? And same for programming, which I do. At the time, I didn't even know what programming is. I had never used a computer. I didn't have a computer at home. So you see how it goes. I allowed myself, unknowingly, but still instinctively, I allowed myself the chance to experience new things and to let's put it poetically, to let fate guide me, to let life show me the way, to let the circumstances reveal the path ahead. And all I could do was to control the limited set of factors that are specific to my condition. So control my disposition, basically, the way I felt about the whole situation, the way I saw the world, and I had a certain emotional outlook towards what was happening and what I was expecting to happen. What I basically did was to not worry about it. What I basically did was to let go. Let go of my dream. Let go of that burning passion that I had, that desire to play football all day, that desire to be a professional in the one thing I liked. There was no other. That's the only thing I cared about. By letting go, by being calm about it, I gave myself the chance to live on, to move on from the past, to embrace the moment, to be in the present, and to just go with the flow. Just go with the flow and see what happens. See what life has in store for you. By the way, let me show you the view, folks. Maybe you can get an idea. So it's a rainy day today, so I'm still wet in a few places because of a rainfall that was on my way to here. But maybe you can get an idea of where we are. So you can see the mountains with all the clouds. I think it is a very relaxing kind of weather. It is a very relaxing atmosphere because it puts things in perspective. It shows you, just as you don't control the weather, just as you don't control the climate, just as you don't control what is happening to you, you don't control anything that influences your life. You are but a tiny factor in a case where multiple factors are in a certain interplay, a dynamic interplay that keeps changing. And your control over those factors is non-existent. You are not entitled to anything in life. You do not deserve anything. You are not entitled to playing the game you like. You are not entitled to doing the job you love. You are not entitled to happiness. You are not entitled to comfort. You are not entitled to companionship. In short, you are not entitled to anything. What happens, happens. And what you can do is learn how to deal with it. Learn to be prepared. Develop the mental fortitude that allows you to cope with the challenges. Because without it, you will suffer. You will suffer because you will always compare the object of your desire, that which you think you are entitled to, with your actuality. You will always compare what you do not have with what you actually have. And you will always find what you have to be lacking. You will always find it to be manqué, incomplete, undesirable. And because there is this mismatch between what you want and what you have, you feel the pain. You belittle yourself. You are like, what did I do wrong? What happened to me? Did God forsake me? Is the universe conniving against me? Did I harm puppies or kids or something, and now I am being punished for it? Why am I going through this? You are searching for answers, rational answers, a neat narrative to questions that have no definitive answers. You want a quick and dirty solution when there is no such solution. You want a yes or no to something that is, it depends. You have to take a step back. You have to stop blaming yourself, to stop rationalizing everything. You have to acknowledge the fact that you are human. And of course that's obvious, right? I know it's obvious. But the obvious things are the ones we underestimate the most. The obvious things are the ones we tend to forget. It has happened to you, I am sure it has happened to you at some point, where you are holding, let's say, your phone in your hand. And you are in your room and you are like, where is my phone? And you are searching your desk, it's not there. Under your desk, it's not there. Under your bed, it's not there. In the kitchen, it's not there. You are like, what is going on? Where is my phone? And you are holding it in your hand the whole time. This is the obvious. This is everything in our life that is obvious. It is right there, right in front of us, but we take it for granted, and thus we do not understand that it is there. We discount it. We dismiss it. We forget about it. And in forgetting about it, we don't do what is obvious. We don't simplify things. We complicate things. So about this point of being human, just let me show you the view again. You can see this is a wonderful view. Of course it is very windy, as you can tell, but I think it's still great. So, the fact that you are human, you forget about it. Why do you forget about it? Because there is a case that has multiple factors, factors which you know are outside your control, and yet, instead of admitting this fact, instead of admitting the fact that your influence over the world is very, very, very limited, you ignore all that and you say, no, I am the one to blame. I did something wrong. It is my fault. And then you search for an answer to this bias. You search for an answer to this which is baseless. To this presumption where you are basically giving too much credit to yourself. You are basically thinking that you are a god, that you control all the factors, you are omnipotent, and that everything is a function of your volition. If I truly believe it, it will happen. Nonsense. Nonsense. What does it mean to truly believe it? If you truly believe it, maybe you will be ready if it comes your way. Maybe you will affect some factors. Yes, of course. I am not advocating for complacency. I am simply bringing attention to the fact that just as we don't control the weather, we don't control what happens in our life. And let me show you 1 second where I am heading. So, 1 second. So you can see that I will have to scale that mountain. I will walk down here. It's not clear, but I will walk down here and then up there. So maybe I will show you when I am at the basis, at the foot of this mountaintop, and you will see. You are giving yourself too much value. You are like, I am a god. As a god, I have infinite power. I can do whatever I want. So something happened that I don't like, which means that I did something wrong. And because you are not a god, the answers you provide are not consistent with your reality. The answers you come up with are not about you. They are about some exalted being, about some other presence in this cosmos that has more power than you do. The answers you provide, in other words, are part of the problem. They are part of the problem because they exacerbate, they reinforce this mismatch between what you have and what you want. They overestimate your abilities. You think you have more than what you actually do. Rather, you can do more than what you actually can do. So you think that the object of your desire is attainable. But many times it isn't. Many times we have to cope with loss. We have to accept the fact that this cosmos, this whole world that stretches towards infinity, that we cannot truly fathom, this whole world is not a matter of our volition. And maybe I will switch to the rear camera so that you can see what I'm about to climb. You cannot even see the top, so I will show you again. So this is what I am about to climb, and there is more. But maybe I can show you like this so you don't have to see me the whole time. But maybe you get an idea of what I am talking about. This whole cosmos is not a matter of your volition. It's not up to you. So when loss occurs, the loss of what you had, the loss of what you could have had, you have to deal with it. You have to acknowledge, to tell yourself, I am human. Something happened in the universe which is outside my control. And all I can do is deal with it. There is nothing else within my power, within my limits. Anything else is but a fool's gambit. It's a delusion. So if I entertain those delusions, I am simply juxtaposing my actual powerlessness with that which I desire. Basically, I am not recognizing what the reality is. I am not being honest about my condition. I am not being sincere with who I am, with my humanity. Let me switch to my other camera, by the way. So you can see, you cannot really tell from this camera how steep this is, but maybe you got the idea from the other camera. So you are not sincere. You are not sincere about your condition. And because you are not sincere, you suffer. You do not accept the reality. You do not accept the fact that your humanity imposes certain conditions, constraints that you cannot overcome, constraints that are robust. We suffer because our mind is basically playing tricks with us. Our mind formulates, using our imagination, formulates all these worlds where we are the protagonist, where we are the arbiter of all that is right, where we are the one who decides of what is and what isn't, what can and cannot happen. We do this in our life in general. This is not about something abstract. How many times, for example, let's think about something very practical. You see someone and you are like, wow, they are very beautiful, very pretty. And you are, now this person is your crush. And you have not talked to this person. You have no notion whatsoever of whether this person is a nice person, has interests that may align with yours, or values that are consistent with your own, that sort of thing. You have no idea what kind of person this person is. Maybe they are crazy, maybe they are abusive, maybe they have all those frailties of character, all those faults. But all you have is the fact that they are pretty. And it's your crush. So what you do, what your imagination does, is to fill in the blanks, to make all sorts of assumptions. And you're like, oh, they are dreamy. The perfect person, basically. They are not only pretty, they are also nice. They are not only nice, they are also interesting. They have a good sense of humor. Blah, 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 blah. You don't know any of that. This is your imagination speaking. But you make that assumption. And if you eventually meet that person, you will be disappointed. Because that person will not be what your imagination had formulated, had delineated. It will not fit into that sketch. It will be a very different person. And you will be disappointed if you expected a lot and got too little in return. Not because that person was at fault, but because your imagination ran rampant. Because you were not honest about the reality. You were not honest about the fact that, look, I only know this. I only see the appearance. That's all I know. Everything else is arbitrary. It is baseless. It comes from nowhere. I am not recognizing what my reality is when I formulate those assumptions and give them truth value. I take them for granted and I say, oh, this person is dreamy. Wow. Relax. Relax. No person is dreamy. No person is perfect. No person is omniscient, omnipotent. To be human is to be imperfect. To be human is to have faults. To be human is to have frailties of character, weaknesses, insecurities, biases. And this applies to us as well, to me. This applies to me as well, and to everybody. By being honest about our condition, we are able to deal with the loss of what we had, the loss of what we could have had, because we do not expect all that much. We see the world, the rhythms of nature, the rhythms of this universe, the wishes of the gods, if we want to put it poetically, and we acknowledge that we are small amid this vastness, this ever-present cosmos, where nothing comes from nothing, nothing moves into nothing. Everything that is subject to transfiguration. It exists in some way, it will transfigure into another presence with a different mode of being. And this is a cycle that is everlasting. A fire that burns forever. An eternal world. And we are, our worries, our selfhood, our experiences are transient, are ephemeral. Now we are, the next moment we are not. We have to recognize the fact that we are transfigurable. We are a presence in this cosmos that has limited power. A presence in this cosmos that controls a tiny, tiny, tiny factor in the totality of factors that informs our case. In the totality of factors that influences, frames, determines, conditions our life. The concatenation of experiences in our life. These are not a matter of what we want. There is our volition, yes, but there are all those other factors as well. And sometimes what we get is what we want. Sometimes it is what we do not want. And eventually, in the end, it is always what we do not want. Death. Our death, the death of our loved ones, and loss in general. The loss of our youth, the loss of our ability to play football at that competitive level, the loss of our interests, and so on and so forth. We live in a world of impermanence. Our world, the way we experience it, is a world of impermanence. When we think that we are gods, when we think that we have too much power, when we overestimate ourselves, we forget about this fact. It's like that phone you hold in your hand and you are looking for. It's exactly that thing. We know that the world is impermanent, but we forget about it. We know that we are humans, but we forget about it. We underestimate what this means. We don't consider how far this insight goes. It is profound. It is obvious, yes. But the profundity in things is not obvious. The profundity is something that you have to think about. What you see is the surface, which is obvious, yes. But then you have to put your mind to it. You have to stop complicating things. You have to learn to reduce them to their simplicity. To look at the bigger picture. To look at the abstractions. Don't be pedantic about the details. And this is where the philosophical disposition comes into play. Because when we are doing philosophy, we do not obsess about details. Oh, I need to know this exact detail, otherwise I cannot possibly know the truth. You are missing the point, my friend. This is what science does, and that's what we need. But science doesn't give you a disposition towards life. Science gives you details. Science gives you facts. Facts that are the product of a certain methodology. Facts that may be revised. That's fine. We want that. I listen to science. I learn from science. But science alone doesn't have all the answers. We need to be able to look at the bigger picture, to escape from the narrow confines of whatever field of specialization, to escape from the boundaries of those compartments of knowledge that constitutes the various disciplines of science. And by taking a step back, we can see the bigger picture. Not worry about the details. Not be pedantic. And this is about acknowledging that which is obvious. As I have said many times before, I have nothing to teach you in terms of inventing something new. There is nothing in my words that has this je ne sais quoi, this wow factor, where you're like, oh, I've never heard this before. There is none of that. You know that this world is impermanent. You know that you are human. You know that the mind and the body are connected. You experience it. Everything that I have also expounded on in previous videos, I won't be repeating myself the whole time. You know it, you experience it. You don't need me to tell you. I can only bring attention to the fact, to that which you hold in your hand. The phone is here, my friend. Why are you looking elsewhere? What are you searching for? It's there. By recognizing that which is obvious and by contemplating its profundity, by accepting the fact that we are human, by acknowledging the impermanence of this world, we are able to escape from the workings of our mind, this fantasizing, this wild imagination of ours, that on the one hand gives us too much credit, and on the other hand draws the world the way it wants. And when we eventually face reality, we are devastated to learn the truth. We are devastated to learn that reality is not the way we imagined it. And we are devastated to know that we are powerless to change this world. We can affect some factors. We cannot affect the world at large. This is the part about entitlement that I already mentioned in passing, but let's consider it a bit further. Entitlement is when you think that you deserve stuff. I deserve to play football. I deserve to be a professional. And again, just a second. I keep climbing those, but maybe you don't recognize it in the videos because of the field of view. But anyway, I have the right. I deserve this. I deserve that. I put in all the effort. I deserve what is known as a high quality partner, which is a very dubious term if you ask me, because high quality according to which criteria? According to your criteria, which you developed in your imagination, you have to take a step back. You don't deserve anything. Nothing is there for you, waiting for you to be ready for it. Nothing is there for you ready to be grasped. Nothing is there for you reserved in that state, in that pristine state. And you're like, okay, stay there and I will find you. Nothing is there for you. If something happens and you get something, it was a coincidence. Maybe you were ready for it, yes, but ultimately you didn't control all the factors. You didn't control everything that went into it. And when it comes to other people, of course, we do not control other people. So in the case of the partner, this high quality whatever partner, it's up to them as well. Just as that. It's not up to you alone. We are not entitled to anything. Nothing whatsoever. Everything we have, that we think we have rather, is a matter of coincidence. We are using it if we have it, but we are not owning it in the sense of being identified with it. I do not own my youth. I do not own my health. I do not own my looks. I do not own my creativity. I do not own my sanity. I do not own any of that. I am not identified with it. There exists a possibility that it is rendered alien to me. There exists a possible world where I am not young, a possible world where I am not healthy, a possible world where I am not sane, where I am not creative, and so on. To think that I own those things, to think that I am entitled to them, is to overestimate my abilities, is to not be honest about the fact that I am human. To think that I am a god, and that whatever I want is mine, and that whatever is mine will be mine forever, and I will be the judge, the one who decides what to own and what to disown. Let me show you a view, folks. I will switch to the rear camera now because this is wonderful. We can see over there at the mountain in the horizon. That's the Troodos mountain specifically. At the top is the peak of Olympus. So let me switch to the front camera. So of course Olympus, Greeks and Olympus, right? Greek speakers anyway. So, I am not a god, I am a human, and I have to bring things down a notch. I have to recognize that I do not control everything, and that many things that happen despite my volition, despite my involvement, and so on. So in acknowledging that I am not entitled to whatever it is that is circumstantially mine, I am relaxed. I am relaxed about the fact that this is what happened. This is what is. I am relaxed about the fact in the sense that I am not invested emotionally into it always being there. To be concrete, let's think about the loss of a loved one. The loss of, let's say, my dog. I have buried 2 dogs. It wasn't easy. It was extremely tough. When I was digging the hole, I wasn't feeling any pain in my hands. I had the strength to do it. However, it was extremely difficult. Every motion felt like a struggle. There was a dagger in my heart, and every breath was painful. Because as humans, we develop emotional attachments. The ones we love them greatly. We want to be with them for eternity. We know, however, that this is not possible. We know that we are powerless to stop it. We know that there is nothing we can do to prevent the loss of our loved ones. Nothing we can do to deal with the inevitable. By the way, they are making some construction works and there is noise, so I will go back. There is absolutely nothing. We can only accept that which our condition renders inevitable. We can only accept the fact that we are transfigurable. Our loved ones are transfigurable. The world at large, all presences, are transfigurable. What happens in this universe can be likened to a pulse that gives rise to forms that deform and transform. It is a cosmic dance. A dance whose rhythm we do not dictate. A dance whose duration we cannot predict, and we cannot influence, and we cannot affect in any way whatsoever. We are not entitled to our loved ones. We are not entitled to our hobbies, to our passions, to our physical and mental attributes. What we have is what we get. What we get is for as long as we get it. By accepting that we are human, we are able to cope with these challenges. We can cry, yes, of course. Of course. No amount of training, mental, physical, no amount of philosophizing will make you something other than human. You will always be human. To cry is human. To love is human. To be attached to your loved ones is human. Nothing can be done to make you non-human. Nothing can be done to robotize you or to otherwise make you emotionless and motionless. You will always be human. And in your humanity, these things are normal. These things are natural. These things are outside your control. You are not entitled to anything then. There is no identity between your presence and that which you think is yours. No ownership. No ownership. Let's continue then with some practical examples. In our life, we tend to overestimate ourselves. And we do this in a very common way, where we dither when we are indecisive and when we keep postponing things. We have a modus operandi where we always tell ourselves and others, just let it be, I will deal with it later. Postponement upon postponement. Our life goes by. We think that time is on our side. We think that we own time. We think that we control it. We think that we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. We do not recognize that tomorrow is not certain. We do not recognize that the future is not clear. We are not affecting it. Maybe we will be there and we will do what we want. Maybe we will not be there and we will not do what we want. Maybe we will be there, but other factors will not be in effect. So what we expected no longer applies. When we live in this way of always postponing, always dithering, always delaying, what we are basically doing is we are, of course, overestimating ourselves, but more concretely, we are trying to live in the future. We are ignoring the fact that what happens here, happens now. We do not have presence. We keep thinking about possible worlds. We keep entertaining all those scenarios, and we get trapped in this overthinking mode. We get trapped in those mazes, in those labyrinths that have no exit. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. You have to act. And the only action that exists is the one that exists now. To act and to be human means to act in imperfect circumstances, to act on the basis of incomplete information, to act in the knowledge that you don't know what will happen, to hope for the best. To act is to perform a leap of faith. It is to admit that you have hope, that you are filling in the blanks of your knowledge. You are filling them in with beliefs, with hypotheses, with likely and plausible hypotheses, sure, but with hypotheses nonetheless. There is no human action without faith. There is no human action that unfolds in omniscience. If you are waiting for the perfect knowledge to come and find you, if you are waiting for the perfect conditions, you know, the factors, all the planets to be aligned, all the factors to be in the most neat and tidy order, and you keep postponing until that eventuality comes about, you simply forget to live. The years go by, and there is your birthday, and you're like, wow, I am 25. And then you're like, hold on a moment, I am close to 40. What happened? Did I time travel into the future? What happened? What happened, my friend, is that you postpone, you dither, you delay, you overestimate your abilities, and you forget the fact that you can only live in the present. You forget the fact that what happens, happens here. It happens now. Don't overthink. Don't overanalyze. And I speak from experience, as I also said in my previous video. I am not blaming anyone. Everything I say is something I have lived through. Everything I teach is not the right word anyway, but everything I talk about is something I live by. It's not something that makes me sound smart. It's not something that makes me sound wise, sophisticated, refined. It's something I do. I live in the moment. If there is something I can do in that moment, I do it. I learned not to overanalyze, not to overthink, not to expect the perfect. I am okay with the imperfect. I am okay if there are blemishes. I am okay if there are frailties. I am okay if there are weaknesses. Words that have not been perfected, finalized, articulated nicely. I am fine with all that. Because time is not a magnitude that we control. The cosmos at large is not something that we control. We have no ownership, as I said. We are not entitled to anything. What we do is a function of the interplay of factors that informs our case. It is a function of factors outside the scope of our volition, outside the realm of our free will, what we call free will anyway. This impression we have that what we do is purposeful. Those factors are outside that. To give a concrete example about dithering, delaying, and postponing. We have lots of options in our world about everything, okay? We live in a world with lots of options. So you are searching for a program to do note taking. You want to be productive on the computer. You want to capture your thoughts and to elucidate them and to have some organized way of putting everything in place and linking between your notes and retrieving information. Okay, by the way, if you don't know, I have a package that does that for Emacs, but let's not worry about it. So you want something to do note taking, and there are lots of options out there. There is Emacs and lots of packages in Emacs. There are other programs outside Emacs, and you are like, okay, I have to pick one. So you do your initial research. You are an outsider yet. You have not been in the process of note taking. This is your first foray into this activity. So you do your initial research, and you produce a short list. And then you stay there. You are like, I cannot decide, so I will think about it a bit more. So now you are indecisive. Now you are dithering. Now you are delaying. You are waiting for the perfect to reveal itself to you, and you will be enlightened in this way. But the perfect will not reveal itself to you because there is no perfect. What you have to do is you have to proceed through trial and error. Instead of overthinking it, just pick one, use it for a while, and by using it, you will have insight. You will have an intimate knowledge of what is this whole note-taking activity. What are the requirements? What are the things you want in your workflow? You cannot know everything in advance. You don't have omniscience. It's raining, by the way, so I will conclude this briefly. You don't have omniscience. You have to act now in imperfect circumstances, with incomplete information. And through trials and errors, you will find answers. And those answers will lead you to more choices. And when you come across those choices, again, you will have to have the same disposition of not waiting for the perfect. The same disposition of proceeding through trial and error, of performing a leap of faith, and of hoping for the best. Understand that you are human. Understand that you are not entitled to anything. Not happiness, not companionship, not beauty, not fame, not sanity, nothing. You are not entitled to anything whatsoever. Deal with what you have. Try to improve on what you have. Yes, of course. That's the whole point of my philosophy. That's why I am walking instead of sitting in my couch. Improve on what you have, yes. There are many things you can work on. But at some point, as you keep working and as you keep improving, you will still notice that there are boundaries. You will still notice that despite your hard work, you are still not entitled to anything. You are better prepared for whatever circumstance may come your way. And by being better prepared, you will have a better experience, so you will not suffer the whole time. But you are still not entitled to that experience. You are still not in charge of anything. We have to return to the basics. When we do philosophy, we develop this attitude, this methodology, this mindset, this disposition of keeping things simple, of trying to see what the abstract structure is, of not being distracted by the details the whole time, of trying to understand things in their simple form. And once we understand them, we can return to the specifics, of course. We don't live in a lab environment, in a thought experiment. Life does not unfold in vitro. That's a Latin phrase, in vitro. It means in the glass, okay? Life is in vivo, in living, in acting, in imperfection, in incomplete knowledge. Given our humanity, given our frailties, our weaknesses, our faults, our biases. By accepting who we are, by accepting that which is in front of us, that we are human, that this world is not a matter of our volition, that this world is transfigurable, that loss is inevitable. By accepting all this, we will have the right attitude. The attitude of not expecting too much. The attitude of not suffering because our imagination ran rampant. Because our imagination was left unchecked to draw worlds that do not exist. Just as I mentioned earlier, that example with your crush. You just see a pretty face and you assume a nice person with a good sense of humor that will love you for the rest of your life. Your imagination is playing games with you. And when you are exposed to the reality, everything will come down crashing and you will be devastated. You will be devastated because you forgot the fundamentals. You forgot the basics. You remained oblivious to the fact that you are human. You underestimated that which is in front of you. So please, this is what I want you to get as the gist of it. The gist of why we philosophize. We philosophize so that we do not overcomplicate things, so that we do not think too highly of ourselves, so that we don't lose touch with reality, that we don't lose touch with all this that is outside of us. That's all for today, folks. The weather is unstable. It will probably rain again. Let me show you now another view and then I can leave you with this one. Let me switch to the rear camera. This is the mountain of Afamis. And in my previous video I was, we cannot even see it from here, but I was in that last mountain on the left, the one that is in the distance. I was there when I was at the waterfall in my last video. So you can see what kind of distances I traverse. And now I will go towards Afamis, towards down there. So let me switch to the front. That's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Keep those things in mind. My hair is all over the place. It is imperfect, just as we are imperfect. So I am fine with this. Thank you very much for your attention and take care. And remember the fact that you are human and take it easy, okay? Goodbye, folks.